Okay, so we have, let me pause here, start it. Okay, so next topic, we will talk about the concept of overflow, right? So we look at this image here. Let me see here. So if we look at this byte here, that is 1 byte, and it can store a value from 0, let me see here, what's happening in our writing, from 0 to 255. Okay, so if we add all these values, then it'll be 155. So see here, meaning all these on-off buttons were on, right? So if they all are, if all of them are on, well, so let me go here, and then we do 128 plus 64 plus 32 plus 16 plus 8 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1. The value would be 255, right? So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let me see if I know how to do this stuff. How do I use it? I've never done it. But if you do 2 to the 8 minus 1, then that the result will be 255, right? So meaning in 1 byte, the highest value we can store is 255. So the question is, well, what happens, assuming we were using a 1 byte data type, right? What happens if you want to store the value 256? Then that is overflow, because according to the rules of this example that I'm giving you, the max value we can store is 255. So if we want to store 256, then that's going to confuse C++. C++ will do its best to help us, but we'll get into that issue, right? So hopefully, understanding this small example, now here we have 32 bits, right? In one int, in the int data type. So the int data type is 2 to the 32nd. Whatever value we get there, minus 1. It's like 2.1 billion something. But if we want to save a value that's like, I don't know, 2.5 billion, what will C++ do? Well, integer cannot hold a value larger than that. So C++ will try to do its best, but it's going to return some weird number to us. So that's a concept of an overflow, and that's what we're going to show right now. Yeah. So if we, let me see here. What I want to do here. So let me bring something up here. ASCII table. Assuming we were dealing with characters, right? Which are stored as decimal values. So notice right here, 255, right? And notice here, 0. So if in 1 byte, we can store up to the value of 255, and hopefully this here, like, it closes the loop. I'm like, oh, so that's why the ASCII table has extended codes, but the max value is 255, because this here can only store 255 different combinations, right? Because 0 through, or 256, right? 0 through 255 is 256, but that's why that's the case. Is that understood? Okay, so if we do 2 to the 32nd minus 1, then we'll get some 2.1 billion whatever value. and we want to explore the example of overflow, right? And I do have some code that'll like help us with that. So let me see here. Okay, right here. Fortunately, C++ has some built-in variables that can help us understand this concept of overflow. Okay, so if we go here, and oh, actually, where are you? Here, and let's create an example. So we want overflow, and let me see here. Yeah, here, like I'm not gonna create a test case. We'll go in main. We'll go in main, and we'll just use output to show what I mean, that it returns some weird value, right? So we go here, and we need IOStream. Cout, and we need one more include, and this include is where C++ stores special variables that can help us with this example. C limits, and now we are like, okay, so create a variable, we name it maxint, and then we say int max, and the hex value, right? So that's a hex value, but if we convert that, then it'll be like a 32-bit variable. So what we will do initially is we'll just say, okay, so let's display this value, and let's see what it is, right? So make sure it's all lowercase, and let's run this piece here. So right click ex0203 right here, and then we run in terminal right here, and let's see what happens. $2.1 billion something, right? So that's the largest value that we can store. So what we're doing next is purposely add 1 to it. So we'll be like, well, let's add 1 to it, and let's see how C++ handles that. So we'll say max int equals max int plus 1. And then we display again. Run in terminal. Right, so notice like it's at negative 2.1 billion and then 48 at the end, right? So we know that's incorrect, right? But C++ is trying to do its best to try to accommodate our request, but this is the concept of an overflow, right? So that's when you need to know, like, what's the max value that an int can hold, right? For this class, we're not going to be dealing with a lot of different domains out there in the world. We're just trying to learn how to program, right? But if you're working in the industry in C++, then more than likely they'd be senior developers who knew the ins and outs of C++, so they dictate what data types to use, right? However, if you're like the only developer and you're like, well, what do I do? Then you would just need to do some research, right? Like, okay, I'm doing this application. It's an accounting app for large corporations. So you're like, I need to investigate what data type I use to make sure that I can accommodate all the values that I'm going to run into, right? So So that's where this can hurt us, right? If we're not aware of that. Questions here? Okay, so no questions. So let me go back here. And then the opposite can also, not the opposite, yeah, the opposite can also happen, right? Let me see here. Is there a question here? Yeah. So Josue is asking if we can use higher values than that in C++. The answer is yes, but not with the int variable. We would need to like, if I was a developer, right, and I would like, you could go and do a search for C++ data types, right? And you're like, well, I mean, what data types? And you would probably be better off going to the CPP reference site. And then you can see here that there's a lot of different data types. Like integer supports negative values and positive values, right? So it's an integer. And if we go here, right, like all these are different data types in C++. So now you understand why I don't expose students to it, because it's kind of like, hey, wait a minute, like int, signed in, unsigned in, long in, signed, what? You know, like that's like a lot of stuff to memorize, right? But for what we need to know in this class, like int, double, character, and string will get us through. But you would have to investigate this piece, and then you'd be doing searches like largest value that a C++ data type can hold, and then it'll show you like, well, maybe you want to use, for example, like long, right? Meaning like a very large number, right? But we don't cover these topics here. All right, so let me see here. Where's int? Int's here. Width in bits, at least 16 bits, right? But we know that we are dealing with 32 bits. And notice like there's a number that can be 64 bits. So it could be 64 bits, all like twice the size, right, of an integer. Meaning 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8 times 8 bits, so 64 bits, right? So then that could hold a larger number. So that's how that would work. So to answer your question, Jose, we can hold larger numbers, but we just have to know which data types to use, right? So, okay, let me.
When's going to be our first quiz, by the way?
Today.
Oh, today?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, so let me